said, I'm Jeff Semler. I'm the county extension agent in Washington County, Maryland, and we do run some cattle on the side. I saw Ira on there, so I know he's been right where that calf is standing, or pretty close to it. So we're going to talk about weaning beef calves and basically reducing stress and building immunity. That's the key to success when it comes to running beef cattle, or certainly if you're in a cow-calf operation. Your buyer wants the healthiest calves they can get, and you want to sell them to them. So we'll keep on. So basically, the weaning is actually it's just the act of taking the calves off the cow. It's so the cow can recover their body condition before heading into winter. If you're a spring calving herd, you want the cow to basically rest and restore before she has her next calf. It's an abrupt separation sometimes, or most of the time, but we're going to talk about strategies to mitigate some of that stress when it's an abrupt separation. So I'm going to start off with a quiz tonight. And if you want to type your answer in the chat box, that would be awesome. I'm going to give you about 13 seconds to think and answer the question. So what do they call October out west, where the feedlots are? Anybody have any ideas? All right, well, I'm going to take the mystery out of it. Dead calf month. What happens is buyers come east, or even go south or west, or wherever it might be. They buy a bunch of calves, they commingle them in feedlots in Kansas, Nebraska, North and South Dakota, Texas, wherever. And if your calf, the calf you send them, isn't well prepared, it will be one of those dead calves. So the keys to success are actually starts at birth. Getting them off to a good start. We want that cow to have her calf without any stress on her. And if there's no stress on her, there won't be any stress on the calf. We want to make sure that calf nurses. And if you're around when your cows calve, you really want to make sure colostrum is very important. We probably don't talk about it enough in the beef industry as we do in the dairy industry, but that calf getting colostrum in that first 12 hours is very important, because we rely on mom to do that and a calf to do that through natural instincts. I always say you need to observe your cows. When you see a calf hit the ground, or if you see a new calf born, or even if you don't see it, but you show up on it, observe the cow's udder. You'll always be able to tell if she's been nursed on at least one quarter. And that's fine. We're not going to, weigh the calf and try to determine how much milk it drank. We just want to make sure that it has done that. Good nutrition throughout the year, or throughout the nursing period, if you will. If mom's well fed, whether it's on grass or however you manage your cattle, she'll produce good milk. The calf will be well nourished from the milk, and will watch mom and learn to graze. And if you have nutritious pasture for the cow, it's also going to be nutritious for the calf. You should have some sort of a vaccination program. We'll talk about these all in depth as we go. You want to always do low stress handling. We always practice that. We practiced it this afternoon when we were working dairy heifers, Sarah and I. We don't yell, we don't thump, we don't bump, we don't carry on. We want to use, as much of our, I guess you would say, our motions and push points on a cow, pressure points on a cow to make her do what we want her to do. And that certainly is important. When you're hollering and carrying on and beating and thumping, the cow gets stressed, you get stressed, and it's just a vicious cycle. And then acclimation, and we'll talk about acclimation when we get to the end of this process. So stress and weaning, it's easy to see why weaning is stressful in calves. I mean, they're used to being with their mom, they're used to nursing whenever they want. They're particularly eating feed and water like mom is. And all of a sudden, we change their life. We kind of turn it on its head when we separate them from mom. Through these stressful experiences, their immune system's depressed. They're most susceptible to BRD, which is bovine respiratory disease. Again, if you aren't familiar with some of these, you certainly can ask questions at the end. We can talk about them. Stress calves also have lower feed intake. So when they lower their feed intake, they lower their plane of nutrition, which also can lead to sick calves. So we're going to talk about understanding the principles of low stress weaning. We want to do everything we can to decrease the stress during weaning so the calves can acclimate well, they can gain well, and you'll have a quieter barnyard. Low stress management ideas are not only relevant to you if you retain ownership, in other words, if you feed your own calves, but they're relevant if you're going to send them out, whether they go to a graded feeders calf sale, whether they go through private treaty, however they leave your farm, if they're well prepared, they're set up for success on the other end of their trailer ride. It's the best way to be profitable. If you send a customer well-prepared calves, you'll have a repeat buyer. And when you have a repeat buyer, they'll pay more for your calves. And so it's kind of a gratifying situation. And lastly, consumers, again, we live in a world now where cell phones are everywhere, where everybody's got a Twitter account or whatever it might be, TikTok, things that I don't even understand. And they have an opinion on everything we do as beef producers. And so if we have calves that are well maintained, they're quiet, we work around them well, we don't have to use antibiotics or antimicrobials because we've set them up for success. We have just gained an ally with a lot of the consumers sector. They're key to supporting welfare and disease prevention. Low stress. That's where you're building immunities. There are some weaning strategies. We're going to talk about those in a couple minutes. These practical weaning methods are really what we want to do is imitate the natural weaning process. Eventually, mom's going to kick the calf away. And there are some folks that actually wean that way. I don't particularly do that myself. I know some folks that do it with some level of success. I also know that you can set yourself up for some other issues, potentially, if that calf is not weaned in a way that really makes sense when we get into the next cow calving and heifers sucking on heifers and so on and so forth. So these are common weaning strategies. We have the guys and they're out there. They wean them on a truck. They pull those calves off the cows, they put them on a trailer and they send them to the sale. That's where the October being dead calf month comes from. That is probably the most stressful, unbelievably fraught with all kind of potholes, that method. I know a lot of guys, and I've heard this before, and why do I want to do extra work when the buyer doesn't pay me for it? I don't get a bonus for vaccinating. I don't get a bonus for bunk training. I don't get a bonus for whatever, blah, blah, blah. Here's my deal on that. I work very hard, and I tell people all the time, my cattle have a very good life and one bad day. And so if I believe that, if I truly believe that, then I want to set those calves up for success when they are going to their next stop in life. I'm not responsible for the guy at the feedlot and how he treats them, but I am responsible for setting them up for success. There's the Band-Aid approach, which is basically ripping the, you wean the calves, you put them in a pen, you put the mama cows on the furthest side of the field or the farm you can, and you put the calves in the barnyard, and that's what I call the Band-Aid approach. Your mom always told you, just rip the Band-Aid off real quick. Well, that's what I call that method of weaning. It can be successful. It depends on how you prepared your calves prior to that day when you send them their mamas on the other side of the farm, or even down the road to another farm. There's two-stage weaning. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. And then there's fence line weaning. So weaning on the truck, as I said, is the highest stress possible of that. The separation plus trucking sets that calf's immune system back. You're commingling them in the sale barn with calves that may or may not be healthy. You're commingling them when they get to the feed yard with calves that may or may not be healthy, and they don't have a healthy immune system. So it's kind of like sending your kindergartner to school on the first day with no vaccinations. He didn't have a good night's sleep, and he hadn't been eating breakfast. It's just not a great way for that calf to get started. As I already said, the Band-Aid approach is quick separation. You pull the Band-Aid off, or you pull the calf and the cow apart. It is a higher stress level. It's not as high as if you were to wean them on the truck because you don't have the hauling. When I say haul to another farm or move to another part of the farm, I'm talking about moving the cows, not the calves. So we're hauling mama, to the other side of the farm, or we're moving her somewhere else, but we're not hauling the calf. The two-stage weaning method is calves wear these anti-suckling nose paddles. Some of you have seen the nose ring. Some of them are just a smooth paddle like in the picture. Some of them are spiked. That induces the mom to give him a little nudge with her foot. And so that's one way to do it. They wear their nose paddles for 4 or 5 days. And then the calves, we remove them, and the calves are then separated from the dams. So they get a little time with mom when they're not nursing, and then they're kind of moved away. You can do it. There's nothing magic about 4 or 5 days. If you want to make a week or 2 weeks, it's fine. You just want to make sure that calves, their nose don't get sore, and they don't hurt their nose by tearing them out or something like that. The weaning method does require an extra trip through the chute, unless tag removal is coordinated with another handling event. So in other words, if you're going to give a booster shot for vaccine for the calves, if you're going to do some other type things that you may or may not, maybe you're going to just check everybody for like horns or things like that. We might have to disc bud or some other management practices. Then it's not an extra time through the chute. But if not, you're going to take them through the chute one more time to get those nose paddles or those nose rings out. I will tell you this, that some calves are smarter than the average bear, and they can find ways to flip those things up and still nurse. That takes a talent, and like I said, not every calf can do it. Most calves can't, but there are a few, as I said, that are smarter than the average bear, and they certainly can flip those up, and they can continue to nurse. They're the ones you're going to notice when you remove mom from the equation. Are probably going to be the ones that are a little more restless, a little more loud, bawling, and carrying on like that. But again, it is a system that is less stress on everyone involved. Fence line weaning is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to put calves on one side of a fence so they can see and hear and smell their mom, and even have nose-to-nose contact, but they're going to not be able to nurse. And you can do this very successfully. This is actually the way that we wean calves on our farm. And as I tell everyone, whenever I use an example from our farm, um, it's not the, I'm not saying it's the gospel. I'm just saying it's the way we do it. There are lots of people that wean that have lots of methods of weaning that I'm sure are just successful, except for the weaning on the truck one. But we really like this method. Um, it's funny. We noticed that the calves actually um, have less separation anxiety than the cows do. The calves will walk away from the fence to go out and graze. And again, the key to this is that everybody has good feed on both sides of that fence. And even if you're supplementing the calves, they're used to eating grass, I'm sorry. So you want to make sure there's good feed on both sides of the fence. Mom has good feed, calves have good feed. And when I say that, I really mean grass. Now, if you, again, this summer, we were very dry here in Western Maryland. If you were one of those folks that had to feed cows, and so your calves are probably already bunk trained or trained to eating a bale or trained to eating grain out of a trough, and you still need to do that, that's fine. They've learned how to do that because they did it with their mom. Research has showed that there are higher gains in the first 10 weeks after separation when you use fence line feeding. You'll hear a rule of thumb is the first 100 pounds is the easiest 100 pounds to put on the calf, and that's post weaning. That's the first 100 pounds after weaning. And that's usually real easy to do if you're using low stress weaning. Cows and calves should be kept apart 3 to 4 days. Quite frankly, in most cases, we're going to keep cows and calves apart forever. The calves are going one direction, the cows are going another. There may be operations, especially smaller operations, where that's not the case. But on most operations where it's running a cow calf herd, the cows are going to be going one direction and the calves are going to be going another. Even if you're retaining the calves on your farm and backgrounding them through the winter, or you're going to feed them out, they're certainly probably going to be going a different direction than the cows. You should use, we like woven wire. You can use 6 strands of high tensile. If you're familiar, if your calves are used to electric fence, which ours are, you can use 2 or 3 strands of really hot electric fence. And again, if the cows and calves have been trained to it, they will adjust to it just fine. But again, it's got to be good electric wire and good, you want a good hot charger as well. When it comes to handling, we want to, as I said, you want to practice quiet handling methods, including loading and unloading trailers. These calves, once you spent time getting them ready to go to their next stop, the last thing you want to do, actually, this goes for any time you're handling your cattle. You need to be quiet, move carefully around them, have well-designed facilities, and your cattle will remain calm. We practice, at our farm, we move cattle with one person. I usually move the cattle on 2 of our farms, and my partner does the other 2 farms. Nobody comes and helps us. As a matter of fact, another person is a distraction to our cattle. We don't drive cattle, we lead cattle. And that works for us. Like I said, I'm not saying this is the way everyone should do it. I'm just saying it's the way we do it. And it really works for us really well. The cattle are calm. They don't run from you. They don't, as a matter of fact, most of the time when we go out and check cows every morning, the cows come to the fence because they think it's time to move. We don't move them every day, at least not on every farm. But they see us and they think, more grass or new grass or whatever. A stressful handling experience weaning calves can really undo the benefits that you've seen in other parts. Even if you do everything right up to weaning, and then you start handling them roughly, it's going to undo a lot of the things that you've already kind of set up for success. You should gradually transition calves onto new feed. Make the feed and water sources available to calves before they're separated from their dams if you can. So what a lot of people do is they'll either put feed troughs in the field, or they'll get position their cattle on their farm where they can come into a barnyard and eat. Most cases they're used to water already because they've been out. If most grazers have water troughs or water, either frost-free waters or water troughs out in their field. So they've already been mimicking mom drinking water out of those. So they've kind of learned that already. But when it comes to eating from a bale feeder or eating from a feed trough, those kind of things mom can teach them. And again, you can do it. And you don't have to do it for a long time. You know, a week before you're ready to wean, put some feed troughs out, you know, put a little feed in them. You know, let the cows and calves learn together. Well, the cows teach the calves. And that will make that transition onto new feed and a new situation much smoother. The calves will already know when they see you come out with a bucket and they hear that corn or whatever, or textured feed or whatever, hit the bottom of that trough, they know what's going on, and they come and they respond very well to it. Again, we do it to about a week before we're ready to handle our cattle. We'll do a little feeding just to encourage them to come into the barnyard. Tomorrow we're going to preg check. So this whole week, every morning I've been giving them a little corn. The calves are learning from their moms to eat the corn. The cows come into the barnyard. I don't shut the gate on them until the last day. So tomorrow morning when they come in, I'll shut the gate behind them so that we can run them to the chute and have the vet preg check them. But that just it just adds to the fact that the cattle get comfortable with coming into the barnyard. It's not like, you know, when you were a kid, you probably always thought, oh, I don't want to go to the doctor. Every time I go to that guy, he gives me a shot in the arm. Well, if you can get those calves coming in and you can make sure that they don't associate the barnyard with bad things, then you're going to really reduce the amount of stress from the start. And then as you work with them to move them around, to separate them, to move cows and so on, it'll go a whole lot smoother. The other thing you're going to have to remember is there's always going to be bad actors when it comes to some cows as they get, you know, mature. And what we do is we simply call bad. You know, I'm too old and I don't heal as well. So we're not, you know, we're not a rodeo clown. We're not interested in getting pushed around by cows or run over by cows. So bad demeanor it gets you on the call list at our place pretty quick. But again, part of that you can set up by just working around them. But cattle are just like people. There are people that are always calm and gentle and easy to work with. And there's always that guy, you know, you've all worked with him, that knothead down the hall. And sometimes there's a cow like that. And, you know, she just like that knothead down the hall, she can bring the morale down. She can bring the stress level up in the barnyard. So you really want to be careful how you handle her if you keep her, because the last thing you want is a bunch of cows stressed out, a bunch of calves stressed out, because this cow has just gone bonkers. The number of stressors animals experience at one time should be limited. So again, when you're weaning, don't add to it. Don't castrate, don't brand, don't dehorn. Do those things at different times. Initial vaccinations, we do, our first shot is well before weaning. Actually, our booster is well before weaning as well. We typically will give, depending on what products you use, so don't, again, this is not gospel, this is the products we use, but it's a 4 to 6 week booster. So we gave shots back in July, and then tomorrow morning after weaning, we're going to run the calves through, and we're going to give a booster shot to the calves. And then when we wean them, that's already done. They're already vaccinated. We're going to we do a clostridial vaccination and a respiratory vaccination. So again, that's one thing that we do. When possible, You should always move the cows. And we talked about that. Older cattle are better equipped to cope. Um, there's fewer sources of stress for those animals. They've been on the farm longer. They know what's going on when you put them out in another pasture. It's not a new environment for them. It's not a strange environment for them. You put a calf in that field, even though that calf's been in that field with mama. Now mama's not there, and it's just another stressor. Again, with your vaccination program, I say work with your veterinarian. You should have a vet client relationship anyway. Someone you can, again, vets don't come to the beef farms a lot. We're pretty self-sufficient, but we do have a good relationship with our veterinarian. She does a great job for us. We can call for advice. We can call for emergency visits if we have them. We have a relationship with that one particular veterinarian, but with the practice, so that if we call and we have a problem, then they can advise us. And so we vaccinate for our environment, and you should do the same thing. If you're out west, you're probably going to vaccinate for blue tongue. We don't have blue tongue in the east, so we're not going to vaccinate for blue tongue. We are going to vaccinate for the clostridial diseases, black leg, those kind of things. We do use a product with the tetanus toxoid in it, because we want to make sure that those calves, if they were to get injured in any way or cut or whatever, that they're vaccinated. And we vaccinate for respiratory disease again, because if you wean those calves and you put them in the barnyard for 30 days or whatever it is before they go on a truck, you want them to be healthy. Their respiratory booster will be good. They'll get out there, because quite frankly, we call it shipping fever, but it's a respiratory disease. It's a stressor, and these calves get stressed, and then they come down with some sort of a respiratory disease, not necessarily pneumonia, but that's something else if you want to back up a little bit. Good, healthy calves don't get pneumonia, and then that sets them up for a good, healthy weaning. So in summary, reduce stress all the time. You should in quiet handling, that should be done from day one. From the time that calf hits the ground, when they see you, they should not associate you with stress. They should associate you with the guy that just walks around, or the lady that just walks around the field and kind of observes. They should not be thinking, uh-oh, here comes that yo-yo again. We're going to be run in here. We're going to be hollered at, beat at. We're going to get a shot, whatever it might be. You want to be careful that they don't associate you with stress. Quiet handling goes a long way. Like I said, we lead cattle. We don't drive cattle. I call the cattle, they come, they know what's happening. They've been trained, if you will, that they know when I holler and we move, where they're going to fresh grass in another paddock. So they're very easy to move, and it's not a bunch of running and chasing and carrying on. Now, that's not to say that when we move cattle that we don't have, when you come to a gate sometimes, especially if you get cows and calves that get through the gate first and they make a turn up the fence line, sometimes you'll have calves that'll run on the wrong side of the fence line up. And that's unfortunate, but it does happen. It does happen. But like I said, we really work hard to do our quiet handling and then vaccinate. I can't stress enough. I know a lot of people, as I said, will say, well, why do I want to spend money on vaccines? That benefits the guy I'm selling the calves to. Well, first off, don't you want a happy customer? Isn't it important to you that the guy gets your calves and is successful with them? Secondly, as I said, we do our best, and I'm sure you do your best, to make sure those cattle are very successful on your farm. So I would think you'd want to set them up to be successful on someone else's farm. And that's kind of an important thing, I think. A lot of times, and there are, if you have enough cattle, or calves, I should say, there are programs out there that will buy calves that are vaccinated a certain way, that are also that are haven't had hormones or haven't had growth promotants. I mean, they haven't had antibiotics and so on and so forth. There's all kind of programs out there if you qualify for them. Most of the time, I'll tell you, I'll be quite frank with you, those type of programs are, you get those bonuses when you sell a tractor and trailer load. So you'll hear people talk about a truckload or 45,000 pounds. That's where when you can command a price, when you can sell that many calves and they're all, vaccinated, bunk trained, all those kind of things. It really does set you up for a very good situation. What happened? Somehow I've lost control of my. Okay, so there we go. I found it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them right now. Again, I can't stress enough that low stress weaning is the key, not weaning onto the truck, if you will. In other words, not shoving those calves, taking them off mom and shoving them on to a trailer that's headed, 2, 3, 10 hours away or however far it is key. Like I said, I like to use the fence line weaning method, but that is not an exclusive thing at all. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.